Hey.
It's time to rock, ladies and
Hooray.
gentlemen. It is the Sunday show. My name is Andrew. I'm here with the A-team. I'm here with the Rock Professor.
Hello.
More about the Rock Professor later in the show. And hot from a hot gig from a sweaty working class bar somewhere in the seedy parts of Melbourne. We managed to track Brad, also known as Brad Sabbath, down.
Oh, nice.
What? Here's a ringer.
Oh, my Lord. What happened to you last night, bro?
Oh, I had a gig on at a place called the Commercial Hotel in South Morang of Melbourne. And let's just say I had my Marshall very, very loud. Let's just say that. It was a good opportunity to open it up. They always say, Marshall amplifiers are like V8 motor cars. You've got to give it to them to get the best out of them.
You've got to thrash it every now and then.
Oh, mate, I socked it to it last night. Don't you worry. I played it so loud. It was great, though. But there's a funny thing about playing loud, like when you're playing very loud. I must admit, the drummer was hitting everything. Like, he was hitting so hard, like his life depended on it because he was enjoying it. And the bass player was that loud, too. It was just unbelievable. And keyboards just screaming through all the fallback monitors and that. It was just, and everyone's fighting for that volume space. It was great.
So you were leaning against the sound that Marshalls were providing you, were you? You felt those leather pants rippling between your legs,
steady,
bro, did you?
Steady. Well, I'm going to say the leather pants, they're a bit snug. So, but I could still feel them flapping because of the
Family show, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. No. look what might happen.
So, no, it was a great gig. So yeah, it was a good fun gig, and like I keep saying, nothing beats the sound of a loud Marshall. That's just my opinion. You turn that thing up, hands down. You don't need any pedals. You just play. That's what most of my sound last night was, a delay and my Marshall and Les Paul. That was it.
So there's normally two Marshalls behind. Sorry, Simon. There's normally two Marshalls behind Brad there, and we see one's not there. So there's no truth whatsoever. They actually are amps. They are not beer dispensers, Simon.
Apparently not. Well, one of them isn't anyway. We can't vouch for the other one that's still there.
Yes,
I was going to say there is one thing better than playing through a Marshall. There's playing through two Marshalls.
Oh,
come on!
If I had the stage size a bit bigger last night, maybe the two would have got dusted off and run stereo out of the delay, all the chorus pedal, just like Zach.
Come on,
go for it! Just turn up and play.
Come on.
Yes.
That is the way to go.
Awesome. It's good to see you guys. We had a great show earlier on the channel. We had Brody from Nashville, Tennessee on the channel. If you guys haven't checked that show out, please, if you are watching a replay, go and check it out. It was a pleasure to have Brody on, and we look forward to talking more gear with him later on, guys. He made reference, Brad, to you in the show. He watched the Eric Clapton show that we did when we were talking about our Eric Clapton guitars. And he thought the point that we made about that one-ply pickguard was a valid point on those 57 Clapton Strats. But, look, I understand what they want to do with that single-ply pickguard, Simon, too. But, at the end of the day, they're a crappy pickguard. The single-ply pickguards are rubbish. They're junk.
And to be honest with you, I just can't understand why they put it on, but because it actually is so thin that it actually wants to buckle. You're
That's
seeing
what
it.
happened. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Talking of strats, I'm getting my black Strat back this week. I've had it refretted.
Oh,
By the mighty Hugh Price. So yeah, he
Very
sent me a
nice.
little video. Looks really cool. Yeah, fantastic. I'm going to pick it up on Thursday.
Yeah.
It'll be like a new guitar. And we had in that show too, guys. We had Greg Roberts. He was on that show with us as well. And how much does Greg like Brad Cook? Look at that. There's only one Brad Cook.
Thank you.
There is. Well, when we say that,
maybe I should say, fortunately, there's only one Brad Cook.
We're saying that.
I got bad news for you. There is never only one Brad Cook.
You've all got it wrong. It's Brad Sabbath now. That's
Brad Sabbath now. Deep
Hey, Leo.
Morning, Leo. Yes, it's where I work, there are two Simon Williamses. It's terrible. We get each other's emails with monotonous regularity.
Private and confidential for Simon Williams' eyes only, and it goes to the wrong one.
And you rip it open, and there's photos there of a good time night from a couple of weeks ago.
Good time, Charlie.
Hey, Simon Williams only fans account.
Yeah, only fins more like, not only fans.
You guys are
can't think of anything more terrifying.
We're in a cheeky
I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what that is. Only fans. What?
I got no
idea. These Simon.
Clearly, Brad the Guns Cook has clearly got an only.
If I had an OnlyFans account, I don't know if I'd be here.
if he suddenly gets a lot of money, Andrew, we know what's happened.
I don't think.
Well, look, you know how we do collaborations here, Simon. You know when we love putting up, banners like that. Check out Brad Cook. Check out Brad Cook OnlyFans account 007, or something like that, or number one gun, the love gun, Brad Cook.
The backdoor man, Brad Cook.
Yeah, oh dear. You see.
Oh, goodness gracious me.
There's only one problem with these nicknames. You've got to start living up to them. That's the trouble. Anyway.
We've got 6 people in here hanging out with us thinking, when the heck are these, when are these 3 going to kick off the show, Simon? So do you want to do a shout out now, or do you want to wait till later on till we got at least maybe double digits in here before? What do you reckon?
Oh well, we'll do a bit. Yes, I'll give you guys a shout out in the chat in a minute. See if we get up to 10. our normal live figure.
Yeah. I think that should be the minimum. You got to have 10 at least before we do a shout out.
so everyone in the chat has to go and get somebody else to come in quick.
Go and get some people to help us out here.
Oh, actually, I do have something that we probably need to say. We need to send our condolences to Mark Tanner, whose dad died a couple of days ago. So, Mark, if you watch this, man, we're thinking of you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed that. I didn't see that. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. But yes, I didn't. So, Mark, our condolences to you and your family.
100%.
It's a sad time. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Very sad. There was something else I was going to say, but never mind. It must have been a bullshit.
I've driven it. I've driven it out of your head.
Guys. So, give you guys a bit of a background to what's been happening. So, on the channel, Brad and the Rock Professor and I, along with Jeff and Robert, they persuaded a guy called Richard Orlando, who came out about 3 or 4 years ago with this wonderful 3-volume biography on the music of Fleetwood Mac that is only available through Richard through his website. And we'll attach that information, so we're going to push that. So we managed, with a bit of help from Bob and Jeff, to get Richard to come on and join us. And that was really good. That was good. So, cut a long story short, we're happy. We went out and we went crazy, Brad, Simon, on social media. There's about 4 or 5 Fleetwood Mac, Peter Green Facebook groups. There's one that's got about 15,000 members that Richard is a member of that I never participated in. We chucked the link in there about the show that we're doing, and I think we've picked up about 40 subscribers, Simon, overnight.
Oh, excellent.
Wow.
Yeah. I noticed we'd gone up to 8,850, so we're crashing towards 9,000. Fantastic.
I think that's the only reason why we had a surge in subscribers. I think, because of that. I can't think of any other reason why.
Yes. That's amazing. Fantastic.
That's really good. Yeah. Well done. That's fantastic as well. Yeah. Well, and hopefully we get some more views on our stuff as well. That's always cool, isn't it? As a thing. Yeah.
So, thank you guys. Thank you everybody for helping and participating in that.
Yeah.
Does it matter? Yeah, it does matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
matters to us, Greg.
Yeah. It's important because, like a lot of things, Greg, that you do, you want to sort of get validation. You want to know, and we haven't changed much from the first shows. We're still sort of on that same plane, aren't we, Brad? We've had different periods where we've grown in spurts. Getting Brad on, certainly, and the Rock Professor and I, spoke about that often. Getting Brad on into the dynamic, into the mix, just lifted the game for us considerably. So, yeah, Greg, it does matter. Bit of pride in what we do. Because I know the effort that my co-hosts go into every week in preparing our presentation, our weekly presentations. It's a bit of work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Look, we appreciate everyone who helps the channel grow and the things we do. We're just, like Andrew's said this before, and so has Simon, we're just 3 guys that hang out talking about music, talking about things we love.
Yeah.
We're music fans as well as being musicians. We're guitar players. We listen to music. It inspires us. It's great.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Johnny Heartbreaker just brought it up as well, and we should do this show. We should give a shout out to Jay Hannon and his family, because Ellie, his daughter, is very sick in hospital at the moment. So he hasn't been on the under the bus thing for the last week because he's been in hospital. Hoping Ellie gets better.
That's awful news. Hopefully your daughter gets better.
Thank you, Johnny, for that. Yeah. Thanks, Johnny, for reminding me about that. That's cool. Yeah. So Jay, hope she's getting better, mate, and
all the best.
Going well in your work.
Yeah.
But, scary times. Nobody wants that.
Yeah, no. Especially young people. It's not good.
Yeah. Thanks, Johnny, for reminding me. That's very cool.
Thanks, Johnny.
Yeah.
So do we want to kick the show off? They come to see you. Yeah, they do. Thank you, Greg. Yeah, they come to see us. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. And as Brad said before, we haven't changed, and you know, we're just the same guys, and you know, we just do the same thing week in, week out, week in, week out, week in, week out.
You know, equally, you know, for the Sunday show at least, we all put in, you know, quite a substantial amount of effort, and Andrew puts in another load of effort on top of that. For anyone who doesn't understand, Andrew is the boss man, and he puts a lot of effort in. He does extra shows. He puts a lot of time and energy into the channel, and it's just great to see for the efforts that Andrew, Simon, and myself are putting in that we are getting some growth and people are enjoying it. So it's a good thing. It's great.
I think there are some practical things that it means. It means that, you know, the more people we've got who watch and who are subscribed means that we can, you know, guests, it's a more attractive option for guests. Let's not, you know, let's not pretend that it isn't. You know, if you've got a 10,000 subscriber, you know, channel, it's a bit easier to attract people, and people want to come on a bit more if they, you know, because there's an audience there. And I think, you know, it's for those kind of practical reasons that we, you know, we like to grow the channel, because you know, you can get better, you know, you can get slightly better quality guests on, and you know, people who are going to be interested if you're a bigger channel, which is cool. I think.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've always appreciated the support, Greg, from you, from Johnny Heartbreaker and Alan, you know, and soon, you know, the Rock Professor's going to go through. We've got 7 people watching, but you guys all know, and girls know all who you are, and you know, we always appreciate that. So, Brad, I suppose, bro, you picked this album. Do you want to kick it off?
Look, well, I picked this album, but Andrew, I stole it from one of your choices. I stole it. I was sitting here going, I'm going to get this one because he keeps picking other albums, and I want to do this. You know, I decided to call it, and Andrew was you know, kind enough for me to take this off his hands. So I chose a very important album and a very pivotal album for Black Sabbath called Heaven and Hell. So 1979 or 1978, for example, Never Say Die, Ozzy Osbourne's era of Black Sabbath, toured, and that was finished. And basically what happened then, Ozzy was out after the Never Say Die album tour, and the former Rainbow singer Ron James Dio was in. Black Sabbath was starting over again. Dio's vocal style was extremely different from Ozzy's, and his writing style, you know, from the very start of like Neon Nights, the first track on this album, it's clear that Black Sabbath weren't looking backwards. They were really trying to forge forward, almost like a new band. Heaven and Hell is an album that not only reinvented but reinvigorated Black Sabbath. It was like a second coming, I guess, and it was like a second coming of some really classic Black Sabbath songs as well. You know, like Children of the Sea, Heaven and Hell, and a lot of these tracks that we're going to talk about today were, you know, they're just as acknowledged as absolute masterpieces and classics as, you know, War Pigs and whatnot, but in a different vein. So we'll explain that as we go without going too much into it. But the album was recorded in October 1979 to January 1980. So it was released on the 18th of April, 1980. It is the first Black Sabbath album to feature Ronnie James Dio, who replaced obviously Ozzy in 79. Produced by Martin Birch. The album was commercially successful. I think it reached 28 in the Billboard 200 in the USA. Yep. In the band's native country, it sold well enough to be certified silver by British phonographic industry in 1982, so a couple of years after it was released. Basically, at the end of the Never Say Die tour, the band reconvened, and they planned to record for 11 months and make a new album with Ozzy. But that didn't happen. The process of the recording with Ozzy in the band was described by Tony Iommi as highly frustrating and a never-ending process. Osborne had stated that he'd become fed up with the experimentation on the preceding albums like Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die, preferring the band's earlier and heavier sound. To a lot of fans, they preferred the earlier albums than what they were releasing at the time. Like Never Say Die had mixed reviews. I personally really enjoy that album, but it was a big contrast from the albums that were prior, like Paranoid, for example. Masters of Reality were, in my opinion, they're masterpieces. So when they got to Never Say Die, I think Ozzy was not necessarily on board with where they were headed. Iommi revealed in his memoir that he still possesses a recording featuring Ozzy singing an early version of what would become Children of the Sea with different lyrics and totally different vocal melody. So ironically, Ronnie James Dio was introduced to Tony Iommi in 1979 by Sharon Arden, who is Sharon Osbourne. So it's ironic how that happened. Initially, Dio and Iommi discussed forming a new band rather than continuing as Black Sabbath, but obviously they decided to continue the Black Sabbath name, and they thought it would be they could do it justice. So obviously they continued that way. Dio said it must have been fate because we connected so instantly. The pair kept in touch via telephone until Dio decided to go to Los Angeles for a relaxed get-to-know jam session with Tony Iommi. And on that first day, they finished Children of the Sea. And Tony Iommi had obviously abandoned that prior with Ozzy Osbourne's firing. So obviously they had a lot of chemistry. They knew what they were doing. The Sabbath lineup was in a state of chaos. And the band obviously, when they went in to record Heaven and Hell, not only did they have problems with Ozzy Osbourne, but Bill Ward was battling personal issues.
Yep.
And Geezer Butler was going through a messy divorce as well. So the future of the band was in question, really. And Dio came in, and I think all the, because they tried different bass players and all sorts of things, but then obviously Geezer Butler came back into the fold. They got through the recording session unscathed, and in my opinion, came up with a what I'm going to call a masterpiece. It's a fantastic album. Basically, Bill Ward was always he liked Ronnie James Dio as a singer, thought he was an amazing singer, but necessarily didn't think his lyrical content, and that was quite favoring for Black Sabbath. It was his interpretation of Black Sabbath, which wasn't necessarily what was previous. But I'm going to put a spin on that and say that I think Ronnie James Dio would paint a picture lyrically with his vocals and the way he sung and the lyrics. And there is a statement from Tony Iommi, which I've got here. I'm just going through my notes. Iommi said that he felt like they were creating something special with Heaven and Hell. Ozzy would sing the riff like Iron Man. He would sing that riff. That was his vocal melody, where Ronnie liked singing across the riff instead, coming up with different melodies, and that would put a different spin on the music for Tony Iommi, which opened up the floodgates for Tony creatively. So Tony did never knocked Ozzy's the way he sung and the lyrical contents and the melodies, because a lot of the lyrics were written by Geezer Butler for a lot of those early classic albums. But Ronnie's approach was obviously like a whole new way and opened up a whole new way for them to think. Another funny thing that during the recording session, actually, I'll just quickly go back to my notes here, a bit all over the place. Heaven and Hell was obviously recorded in Miami, Criteria Studios, which is where they recorded Technical Ecstasy as well. And then Studios Ferber in Paris. So they recorded between those two studios. If you're familiar with Black Sabbath, Tony Iommi used to always play pranks on Bill Ward. And there's a particular incident that happened while they were recording this, which is something that I think I should talk about, which was in his memoir, Tony Iommi's memoir. He had a long history of the whole band had a long history of playing pranks on Bill Ward, the drummer. And obviously during this recording, it was a slow day in the studio, and Iommi doused Ward with a solution used by studio technicians to clean the tape heads. Set light to it, the solution, and he realized it was much more flammable than he probably anticipated. Bill Ward, obviously, from that, suffered third-degree burns, and he still has scars on his legs from that incident. Ward had stated that due to his alcoholism at the time, he has no memory at all of the period in which the album was recorded. Obviously, his behavior became erratic. On the Heaven and Hell tour, it got to a point where he abandoned the tour, and they got in drummer Vinny Appice. So he became, I guess, the Dio era drummer for them live and moving forward. So, Bill Ward, that's his only drumming with the Dio era that was, and everything else features Vinny Appice on drums. So I hope I've covered off everything that I can think of, guys, for this album. I'd love to see if you guys can have got anything else you want to add to that, Simon or Andrew. Simon,
I think it's what you touched on. It's significant that this is one of the few albums not written by Geezer Butler, where the lyrics are not written by Geezer Butler. We can get into it, the differences and and there is a marked difference, isn't there, between the things that Geezer Butler wrote about, and certainly the early Black Sabbath, the ones we've covered, he's miles away from what Ronnie James Dio is writing and singing about on here. And I think it's significant. And I picked up an interview with Zakk Wylde saying that that if you listen to Black Sabbath with Ronnie James Dio in it, it's not Black Sabbath. They should just have called it Heaven and Hell right from the beginning.
100%.
Which is quite interesting, quite an interesting take on that. Whether, and when we get into it, the sound of the album and its content is. I've listened to it. I've whirled away from what I think of as Sabbath, really, in many ways. I don't know the other albums kind of before and after, about whether it's quite as tangential as it seems now to me. But I don't know whether when it goes out as a kind of thing and then comes back and kind of into more traditional Sabbath territory later. I don't know, but you could answer that question. But
Andrew,
that's an interesting bit for me.
Got anything to add to it, Andrew?
No, I think as per usual, bro, you've killed it with the introduction.
Thank you.
You've covered all the facts. I just think it was a watershed moment for the band and for those musicians individually, for them to get this small little American Italian guy into this band that had a huge following. Just as a bit of self-defense for the band, I suppose they had to at least go by the name Black Sabbath because that meant something to a lot of people, and from a marketing point of view, it clearly worked. I just want to talk about, if it's okay, buying the album in 1980 while I was at high school, in the third form, starting high school, and my mate Garth Bromfield, David McCall, Alistair McClymont, and we thought we were rockers and rollers. And I've been exposed to Black Sabbath beforehand, and we've spoken about this before because we've done other Black Sabbath albums where it was like spooky, you know, and people were saying, oh, you know, this is like, be careful, you know, and you went and listened to it and nothing happened. Yeah, I was still normal. I wasn't a devil or a demon, you know, I was okay. So
yes, there I was one night, just a normal guy, and there I was the next night, still just a normal guy.
But getting this album, even back then though, I remember guys, you know, that we knew from sport and that were like fourth formers and fifth formers, a couple of years older than us, and, you know, sticking to this thing of, you know, oh, it's not the same, you know, even back then, you know, that little bit of difference, you know, it's not Ozzy Osbourne. You know what? And it didn't bother me, Brad, back then, because when I first heard this album, and we're going to talk about the tracks, it just peeled everything off, peeled your face off. It was just fantastic. And I think Leo's made the comment here, Leo or Gretsch Zeppelin, somebody forgive me. Somebody made the comment here that this is the best Black Sabbath album. Yeah, you know, it's in my top 2 Black Sabbath albums. I love it. I love it, and it's been a joy the last couple of weeks just going back to it.
100%. Yeah. Simon, when's the first time?
The first time I heard it was about a week ago, to be honest.
Oh, really? Wow.
Well, really, yeah, because, well, you know, as you know, I went, the second gig I ever went to was Black Sabbath in 73 or something. And I've spoken about it here on the channel quite a lot. You know, by 1979, 1980, I'd gone off on a completely different musical journey, really. And therefore, this album just completely passed me by as a you know, into the 80s and stuff. I just was into different things in the 80s, much more kind of new wave and punk stuff and kind of things that that interested me then. So I can't say that I might have done, but I have no memory of hearing it, and certainly not regularly hearing it, because I didn't know particularly anybody who would have at that stage who would have bought it and played it. So I was in a completely different place. So it's been great fun to go back and listen to it. You know, it's kind of like coming at it completely fresh as a, you know, as a.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
I mean, well, it's a two-edged sword, isn't it? You don't have the kind of the place and time thing, so that, you know, I'm listening to it when it's released. That gives it a place and a time. So clearly, I'm coming at it from, you know, reversing at it and looking at it through the long lens of 40 years or 42 years of it coming out, and therefore making connections and making things that probably weren't there at the time, but are there in hindsight, kind of thing. So we'll see if any of those work. But now it's been you know, yes, I only listened to it about a week ago. But, you know, I think that for me, that's what I hope this show does. Not only for me, well, for me is not another. You know, if we could talk about an album and people can go away and listen to it and go, oh yeah, you know, then I think that's pretty cool, and that includes myself.
What you know? What about you, Brad Sabbath, Tony Iommi's love child?
Look, you know, in my discovery of Black Sabbath, obviously all these albums that we've done were all out already. So it was just, you know, my discovery of Black Sabbath falls back on, again, my good friend at the time, and still friends with, Luke Foley. He was like a brother to me, and his older brother, his name was Brad as well. Great guy, great name, obviously. So, you know, and so Brad Foley was a big Sabbath fan and used to put it on his car when we go in his car. He'd put it on, but this album in particular, I'd only heard Heaven and Hell from it. I never really heard the whole album, and I rushed out and I bought in succession all the Black Sabbath albums on CD, and I got Heaven and Hell after I got all the Aussie ones. After I got Never Say Die, I went and got Heaven and Hell, and it wasn't what I expected, but it totally blew away. It was. I was in my younger years, I was, into really heavy music, and I was the doomy. Sabbath was my fave. I wanted to hear more. Masters of Reality is one of my favorite Sabbath records. I was like, I want to hear more like that. I hope they've done another Master of Reality with a new singer, but it wasn't. And I'm pleasantly surprised and refreshing to hear Sabbath the way they were. But as the years progressed, I'm a big Dio fan. I'm a closet Dio fan. I don't push him too much. He's one of my vocalist heroes. I love his voice, and I love his solo career as well, even down to discovering one of my favorite guitar players through Dio, Doug Aldridge, who played on Live Evil, this DVD, which I'd love to rank at some point. It's great, but I discovered Doug Aldridge through Dio, and he's one of my favorite players. So going full back to answering your question, Andrew, it was just a succession thing of loving Sabbath and discovering, and this era of Sabbath became like another band to me in my mind, but it still had and then obviously with Sabbath progressed with different singers and Ian Gillan and this and that, they're all kind of got like a place for me. They're not necessarily like the one Black Sabbath, if that makes sense.
Thank you for that. And when we finish the show, guys, I'm gonna play a video right at the end, because we might get copyrighted for it, and it'll be easy for us to edit it out at the end. But the only reason why I want to do that, guys, it's a cover. So one of the first comments I put here in the comments before we started the show, Brad and Simon and everybody in the chat, 10 years ago, I met a guy in America through YouTube, through Van Halen. Surprise, surprise. And we were talking about a different kind of truth. Anyway, we swapped emails, and we were sharing emails and talking for a while. Anyway, he said, what do you think of Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell? And I said, man, I love the album. And then that just took us, bro, on a different journey, Simon, for a couple of weeks, couple of months, just talking. And he said, look, go and have a look at my channel. There's a 15-year-old video of him, and he was trying to set up in America, this Dio tribute band, and it was so difficult because they couldn't get the right singer. He said, Andrew, I could get bass players, I could get drummers, and he's a guitar player. And he said, I can play guitar, but I just couldn't get the guy that was going to put... And he said, we could get... This is no disrespect to Ozzy. He said, I could get guys that could sing like Ozzy, half a dozen of them, no problem. But getting someone to say... And I remember having that conversation with him. Anyway, he said to me... he said he wanted to be a singer, and I said, wow. He said, I don't want to play guitar. And the guitar player on this video is Michael, the guitar player. And I'm going, wow, man, you're a killer guitar player. And he goes, no, I would have chucked all that in if I could have sung like Dio. And I'm going, wow, I've never heard. Now, very often do you hear Brad and Simon, a guitar player, saying that they'll chuck their guitar in just to go and sound like a singer. But thank you, thank you, Brad and Simon and everybody, for allowing me to share that little story. But I'm going to play that video at the end, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
We have 12 people watching, so I'm going to do a shout out to everybody in the chat. So say hi if you haven't. So we'll say hi to Tim Thomas, Ellen. So good morning, Ellen. And Tim, we've got Greg Roberts too. Morning, Greg. Cool. Leo Safko. Morning, Leo. We've got Johnny Heartbreaker, of course. Johnny, good morning, Johnny. Hope you're good. And we've got Holly Lewis as well. Morning, Holly. Who's skipping back and forth between the Saturday night shows. And I'm teasing her about it. Gret Zeppelin. Good morning, Gret. Good to see you. Anybody else who's doing? I think that's everybody who's made a comment. So good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. It's good to see you all again.
Awesome. Thank you. Nice to see you guys. Right, are we going to kick off, Brad? You're the kicker offerer. Sabbath.
Dive straight into the songs. Let's dive straight into them, guys. So this last fortnight, I've been absolutely flogging this record, and I'm going to disclaimer: I've changed my rankings 2, 3, 4 times because I wanted to be a little bit more critical in this one than I have been in the previous few episodes, because I feel like I give all the time. But a disclaimer: me ranking them the way I am doesn't mean I dislike them or like them better or whatever. I just wanted to be because there's a couple of them that really shine, and I want to make them that stand out, obviously. So, Neon Nights. Look, the minute I first heard this, I was like, "Wow, this thing's thumping along." Yeah, it's a big, tough, fat sound. It's got a gallop-like rhythm section, in my opinion, almost Iron Maiden-ish a bit. Like that's the vibe I get. Yeah, Ronnie James Dio, his voice is incredible. If you've never heard Dio before from Rainbow or whatever else he's done in the past, and this is the first time you've heard him when you put the CD on or the album, you're going to be blown away. You can't be anything but blown away. And when we show pictures of Ronnie, you'll be amazed that this big voice is coming out of this little guy. Unbelievable. I love his lyrics. The whole sound is very different for Black Sabbath. Like I said, it could be, you could be forgiven for mistaking it like an Iron Maiden song, in my opinion. There's a possibility you think that. Very straight drumming from Geezer Butler. His drumming in this song, he's notorious for being a very busy drummer, and in this track he's playing very straight, very, very straight. Iommi keeps his rhythm tracks very simple, even Geezer as well. They're keeping it on the 1 and 2 and the 3 and the 4. They're just keeping it like that. They're not really deviating around it too much. There's some great guitar solo work. Very, very trademark Iommi licks in there, but it's apparent at this point in time listening to this track that Tony Iommi is definitely implementing some different strategies and playing on this song to previous. Like when you listen to Never Say Die, he's sort of dabbling with what he's doing here, technical ecstasy, but maybe the influence of other players around at the time are rubbing off on him a little bit, and you can start to hear it in his playing. Look, this is a fantastic track opener. I think it's got all the excitement and everything to pull you straight in. You got to remember this is a big moment for Black Sabbath. They've come out with a new singer, and their first track on the album is Neon Nights, the first track people are going to hear. Bam. 9 out of 10 for me. It's never a skip. Simon.
Awesome, bro.
Yeah, it's interesting. As I said earlier in the intro, good morning, John ZD351. How you doing? Hope you're good. Thanks for joining. Coming at this sort of backwards, as I said earlier in the intro, that and I read a quote that said we felt we needed a fast number like this to balance out the slower numbers on the album. As a kind of opener, and clearly it's an opener, and designed like that a bit. That it reminded me so much of Highway Star by Deep Purple. That kind of dun 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 dun. That no idea, and that please, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. That's it's a, and I think that having that kind of dun 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 back build thing that Highway Star does is really good. I mean, sort of makes it a very strong opener. I also thought on this that the guitar, you talked about Tony Iommi playing differently, and he sounded quite Blackmore to me on this. There's a lot of kind of like quite aggressive, fast phrases on this that reminded me of kind of Richie Blackmore playing more than in a way that I don't associate with Tony Iommi at all. It's and it's interesting you pick up on that kind of that different strategies for playing different things. I don't know whether is this post Rainbow.
Yes.
Not, is it? It's,
yes.
Yeah. So I don't know whether, I don't know. I'm sure he didn't. Johnny James couldn't have brought Richie Blackmore influences to the thing. I don't believe that for a second. But it kind of feels like that in a funny sort of way that he did. So yeah, an interesting kind of complete change of lyrical content into kind of fantasy lyrics from Geezer Butler's much more kind of down to earth kind of, you know, concerns, and the only stuff he wrote within the early Black Sabbath is much more kind of human concerns and things about whatever. But yes, this takes it into a completely different territory with Dio, and yes, it's definitely a 9 out of 10 and Nevaaskip, and is a great opener to the album, I think. You know, Andrew.
Yeah, I think we're going to be on the same track here. Even Ellen gives it a 9 out of 10 as well. So that's great. And as usual, guys, please give us your ranks as well, and we'll mention them. Neon Nights, what a killer opening, Brad and Simon. That riff. And then at that 42nd mark, Brad, you've got that key change, you know, so straight away you know there's something going on here that you don't kind of get on anything else. Brad, what I really love about this too is that nice reverb that they have on Ronnie's vocals on this track. And we're going to talk about Ronnie's vocals clearly track by track. But that's certainly a standout on this track here when you compare his vocals on other tracks. They got a reverb going on. I like that. And it gives it that depth and space that Ronnie loves, because he did that before on previous bands. Obviously, you know, it was kind of his trademark maybe. And that bass pattern that's going on under the vocals, it's phenomenal. You know, clearly the bass player, and we're going to clearly again talk about this on other songs, there's something cooking between the bass player and the vocalist in this band, and we've seen that before. Led Zeppelin,
he's mentioned the LZ word.
Yeah. That there's definitely something going on, and the bass playing gets more and more sophisticated. So, you know, clearly, very good musicians. I'm going to say this. I think even after listening to this song, after about the first 2 minutes, you realise, you get the impression that the rest of the band have upped their game. They've upped their game, and I'm getting that on this this album. Classic Tony Iommi solo, Brad. You know, again, it's something that you would expect, you know, it to be. Nothing groundbreaking, but again, I'm not being disrespectful when I've said, you know, when I say that. You guys have given this a 9 out of 10. I've given this an 8 out of 10, and I just want to echo a little bit about what Brad said too. I'm marking this album with a lot of affection and a lot of tenderness, because it's very dear to me. So the high marks are going to be because they are epic. But Simon, killer track, killer opener.
Yeah,
Brad.
Yeah.
So we're on the same path, which is good. But it's an interesting you know, move forward for the band at this point in time. You've listened to the first track, you're like, wow, these guys sound different with this new singer. They're not just the old band with a new singer. They sound like a new, fresh restart. It's like they press reset and they're off. So that being said, we're up to the second song, which is Children of the Sea. Now, this intro alone, you could just listen to this over and over and over. I reckon the intro of this song is beautiful, and it captivates you, it pulls you in. There's some fantastic acoustic playing there from Tony Iommi, and the bluesy sort of almost, it's bluesy, but it's got a melodic feel to it over the top, with that melodic bass playing that Geezer adds. He's starting to add a little bit more from the first song. He's opening up a little bit. Dio's voice just sounds angelic at the start of the song. Then when the drums come in, when Bill Ward comes in, the song demands power and attention, and Dio sounds incredible. The band is so tight, and this is a very, very different Black Sabbath to Masters of Reality or Paranoid albums, in my opinion. great lyrics. Like I said in the intro, Dio paints a picture with his words. I love his voice, and I love the way he doubles himself and does his own harmonies. And I don't think Ozzy did that a lot, if at all. So there's another element to Black Sabbath that they were starting to think about textures in vocals and things like that, which obviously we know Dio was a remarkable singer, but he had remarkable ideas to make his voice sound even bigger and better. Great guitar solo from Tony Iommi. Over that spooky chord change, and that chanting sort of sound, like so there's all that going on underneath the guitar solo. It brings back a little bit of that old school Sabbath, in my opinion. It brings that back, it captures that back for you a little bit. Tony is definitely applying some new techniques to his playing in this song with his solo and his lead work. He's definitely moved away from just being Iron Man guitar player. He's trying new things. This song, in my opinion, is a Ronnie James Dio era masterpiece, and I love the song. I love hearing Dio when he performed it solo. I love hearing it with Sabbath. I can't do anything but score this 10 out of 10. It's a scorching track, Simon.
Scorching track. Yes, again, it's kind of reminded me of moving into kind of fantasy Rush territory. This kind of, certainly with the 12-string guitar at the beginning, and that might kind of much more fantasy theme in it. Early Rush to me is like that, not late stuff, not post Permanent Waves, but pre that sort of. I felt that. But that's a good thing, by the way, not a bad thing. I think, as I say, I think I'm making connections that maybe weren't there at the time. They could have been influenced by them, and there's no reason why they wouldn't have been. If they're searching for a new sound and a new direction, picking up on what particularly American bands are kind of, Canadian bands were doing, kind of thing on the other side, I think is evident. And I think that's probably one of the things that Ronnie James Dio brings to this, is a kind of bit more American thing. You're right. It's a very different Tony Iommi sound, isn't it? There's effects going on for starters. There's kind of the riff has that big sound phased. Kind of that give it a kind of very different Iommi vibe to the early stuff, which is clearly moving forward and trying to find new sounds and using effects and things, which I think is on this album seems to be really important to for Iommi. I think that again he's done that twin guitars on the solo, definitely, two guitars playing together, which I think is I don't remember that from the early stuff. Definitely not doing twin guitars. He might have done, but that seemed to be with that kind of really big and almost we're getting into that sort of stereo sound almost kind of thing, with that kind of huge massive sound. I play it on my big speakers here. It's just like it's enormous, really. Play it on a big stereo with proper. So yeah, and I think the 12-string is really cool as well. And plenty of it. I think one of the interesting things I thought about this was when the drumming is that the drum is quite straight on this record, isn't it? It's kind of like he's laying it down, the rhythm, and without too much flash, and maybe I think in a different way than he played before. There's differences there, just kind of keeping it tight, but kind of very expressive drums at the end, kind of, stuff going on at the end of it. Yes, 10 out of 10. Nevaaskip, clearly one of the epic tracks on this record. Andrew.
Thank you, Rock Professor. Thank you for giving us a fresh ear to this. Children of the Sea. Okay, guys, my turn. That acoustic intro is clever, isn't it? And Brad, who's not going to fall in love with On a Misty Morning, on the Edge of Time?
It's uncanny. It's uncanny, isn't it?
the lyrics. It's not the vocals. There's a difference here. Misty morning on the edge of time. It's just, yeah. And again, I'm going to point this out to St. John's College. English literature classes. They had us reading Tolkien at the third form. So when we were discovering this kind of music, Brad, I've said it before, we were enraptured by these lyrics, because it was reflecting what we were reading. We were in Saxon, and Iron Maiden. You're getting these medieval kind of fantasy lyrics coming through, and it was just like, wow. Yeah. What are they singing about now? I don't know. Anyway, that's a separate story. Ronnie nails it on that. Again, the bass speed is so deep on this song, and I'm going to be making a reference to it. And I think I'm going to echo something that the rock professor said. I think the reason why the bass is so good and the patterns that we're hearing with the bass is because the drums are just so standardly patterned in its in what it's doing. So again, clever kind of engineering or production. I don't know. And I think, Brad, for me, I think this song here caught my ear for the bass, and I think this was one of the songs where I thought, this is what a bass sounds like. I think this was the song, that where I realised the bass is a crucial part of rock and roll. I'm pretty sure I did. Yeah. I love the harmonies, the nice harmonies, and that little solo that they have, that acoustic solo before, after the interlude, and then you go, look out, look out. It's just like, look out. Wow. Yeah. Guys, I want to give it a 10 out of 10, but I'm not. I'm giving it, Brad, never a skip 9 out of 10.
Whoa. Marking it hard this week.
You've tightened up those shoestrings, haven't you?
Oh, I'm gonna keep any of my high scores for the diamonds.
Your diamonds in the rough.
Oh well, so we're pretty much on the same path, guys. We are. I mean, 9 out of 10 is still a great score. Still great. Thank you. Score. Should be 10, but 9's pretty good. So we come to the next track, Lady Evil. I'm sure we've all met one of those. I don't know why I said that. The bass at the intro
should get us in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't mean that. I'm joking.
Don't drag us into your own private hell, Brad.
No, I'm just talking men generally. I'm going to shut my mouth now and get back to the music. Lady Evil, that bass intro and that drumming, just even before the guitar comes in, it sounds astounding to me. It's got that flap to it. It's got like a lot of that sort of dead sound. I love it. It's like, it's just, there's something about that whole bass thing for me. I love it. When the guitar comes in, it really lifts. This song, again, great vocal delivery from Dio. The band are keeping it very catchy. I don't know if this is intentional or not. Very tight. It almost sounds intentionally commercial to me, this song, the way they're trying to put this song together. Despite the rumors that Bill Ward, wasn't really into Dio's lyrics, or not his cup of tea, I'll say that. I love his lyrics. I think they're fantastic. And some great guitar playing from Dio on this one. That night, Tony implements some wah guitar, wah solo, wah. We all love the wah pedal on this channel. Wah playing on this is fantastic and sounds great. It's a fantastic track. This is this is a very different sort of sound for Black Sabbath, without a doubt. By this point, you know that they're definitely trying to distance themselves from Paranoid, for example. So I gave this song, and I love the track, but I gave it an 8 out of 10, just because I'm ranking it in relation to all the rest of the songs, and I had to sort of give it an 8 out of 10. Great song.
Yep.
Simon.
Yep.
Yes, I think so. Yes, it's. I don't have much more to add to that. I think that the bass and drums together are really tight, and Andrew's pointed out the bass particularly, and that slightly different interaction between the two, which I think is different on this record than it is on the earlier Sabbath stuff. It's got a very dramatic solo, isn't it? I mean, again, a kind of Iommi's clearly trying to play and doing things in a different way than he has done in the past, and broadening his horizons, changing what he's doing, changing the way he's playing. More fantasy lyrics from Dio. It's very much his thing, isn't it? The fantasy lyrics, and as Johnny just quoted the first couple of lines of it just now. And it's John says Lady Evil Hydra has the throb. I know what you mean, John. It's the bass thing. Yes, that particular bass drum. I too gave an 8 out of 10. Never a skip. And again, the first three tracks are kind of contrasting with each other, aren't they? They all have elements that are not in the others, like the 12 string in the second track and things. And I think that that's clearly on this album is important, is to make a bit more varied and not just the heavy riffing kind of thing that does it. So yes, 8 out of 10 from me. Never a skip. Mr. Walton.
Yeah, I'm going to say this word classic, but I don't mean that in an offhand kind of way when I say this, but it's got that classic rock intro, and I think most people understand what I mean by that, and it's got that smooth wah coming in. Ronnie again, guys, is in the pocket, and you've got those nice toms going on here, which is adding the dynamic, which is a little bit different from the previous songs. And the bass now the bass is doing something a little bit different. The bass is just playing the chords. It's not playing patterns, that it was for the last two songs. So it's just as John ZD351, the rock man himself, said, it's just doing the throb. And that's it. It's just playing those bass chords, boom. And it just, gives it that different contrast to the other two songs. And again, the lyrics, again, it's like, wow. And, read that out, Simon. Read that out. It's not a spell. We're not reading spells, people. We're just singing, we're reading lyrics.
It's almost a spell, isn't it? There's a place just south of Witch's Valley where they say the wind won't blow, and they only speak in whispers of her name. There's a lady, they say, who feeds the darkness. It eats right out of her hand. With a crying shout, she'll search you out and freeze you where you stand.
Wow!
Did I give it the requisite gravitas and the drama?
Hey, kapow!
So you go to these social dances, and that's what you're thinking in the back of your mind when you're looking at girls,
Speak for yourself. I've never thought about that when I've been to a dance.
I'm wondering if anyone here in the chat went to actually see Sabbath with Dio. I'm assuming, I reckon there would have been probably 70% of the women there would have been witches. I can guarantee it. I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. Nice.
Yeah.
So
I love the song, Brad.
Is that a
I love the song.
Survey, Brad. Is it?
Yeah.
The survey you've taken, is it 70% of all the women at this era's Sabbath concerts were witches? It's proof.
Well, something. Something.
Guys, this is.
I too have given it 8 out of 10 as well. So, Yeah, we're all on par there. We're all on par. Great song though, Brad.
Yeah, no, it's a great song. So we're up to the last track of side one, and what a mighty masterpiece this one is. It's the first song on the album to me that has similarities to early Black Sabbath. It's got a tough riff. The verses have that amazing tight bass playing from Geezer Butler. I don't know. This one is very straight. The way he's playing, he's playing very straight. The drumming is very straight. So like Geezer Butler and Bill Ward just keeping this one straight and tight. But that big opening riff, I mean, my goodness, that thing could knock down concrete walls. It's that tough. It's amazing. It's like an excavator or something coming at you, knocking down brick walls. It's just unbelievable. The lyrical content of this song, I've spent, a lot of time this last 2 weeks listening to this album, and you get lost in this song lyrically. I think if you're really listening to what Ronnie's singing about and the vocal, you get lost. You lose track of time. The song's finished, and you're like, "Well, what just happened then?" And for a singer, and particularly a lyricist, to do that, they're doing their job, in my opinion. That's outstanding to be able to do that. And the amount of times I've listened to this album in the last 2 weeks, it's happened every single damn time. I've lost track of time listening to this track. Yeah. I lose concept of what I'm doing. I'm driving along and I'll go, man, where did that last? I've just been driving and I completely don't know how I got here. It's unbelievable. So I love the lyrical content in this song. And I've spent countless hours as a young fella playing along to this song on my guitar in my bedroom. And I think it's almost a mandatory Black Sabbath riff to learn on guitar. The change at the 2 minute sort of 18 seconds mark for the bridge section of the song gives me goosebumps every single time. The vocals through that section are outstanding. Around 3 minutes 15, the guitar solo starts. It's very spooky, very open and not much going on. There's some wonderful delays happening it's recorded so damn well. It's unbelievable. And as the progression builds up, Tony's playing lifts perfectly for the song. It's like he's not trying to show what chops he's got. He's building this solo. It's like constructing he's writing the solo to suit the chord changes and the dynamic of the song. It's unbelievable. So for me, that's what it takes as a guitarist in a band. You play for the song. You don't try to shine. And Tony does that marvelously. And truly, he has to be one of the all-time greats. And I know he gets a lot of recognition for writing some of the greatest heavy metal riffs of all time. But I have to say, I think some of his solo playing, and especially on this track in particular, some of the greatest guitar playing ever recorded. It's unbelievable. Around that 4 minutes 15 mark of the song, takes that double time feel, and there's some thumping bass line there from Geezer Butler. Tony Iommi again opens up on the guitar, some wonderful playing. He's unmatched by anyone, in my opinion. But the highlight of this song for me is definitely Ronnie James Dio. With the misfortune of Ozzy leaving the band, or losing Ozzy, meant that they were graced with the opportunity to work with Ronnie James Dio at the helm. And honestly, I couldn't imagine a better singer suited for Black Sabbath than Ronnie James Dio. As a little outro piece, that nice little acoustic outro, I gave this 100 out of 10, or 10 out of 10, 100 out of 10. It's a must.
Brad score.
And it deserves nothing less. Simon.
Yeah. Yes, good morning, Brian. How you doing? Long time no see. I hope you're well. In sunny Hawaii. It's a tough life, isn't it? He's moved from California to Hawaii recently, so I hope you're well, Brian. You and your family. Yeah. And, it's nice to see you again. Fantastic. Yes. I mean, I can only concur, really, Brad, with what you said. I think that it is the first song where you can go, look, classic Sabbath. The much more classic Sabbath riff at the beginning, and but and taking it down so that you just got the drums and the bass under the singing to start with. It's got a lot of, it sounds got a lot of dynamics in it, a lot of ups and downs and changes. And I think if you're going to write a song that's going to be 7 minutes long, you have to have all of that stuff in there. And clearly they understand about dynamics and about usage of that. And I think that those dynamics, they are being enhanced by the sort of greater effects usage on this record, for sure. Tony Iommi's, when you get that drop down at 310 with that huge guitar echo sound, with a more ethereal second guitar, it's like that's not classic Iommi in the past. That's new textures and new sounds that he's using, which is just morning, Quentin. That's really interesting, and I think it maintains, as you say, Brad, it maintains the interest all the way through the track. And I think that these bands from the early 70s, they understand about that, and about if you're going to have a 7-minute song, the different sections you have within it and what they do and how they mesh together, but how they give you contrasts, dynamics, and changes within that, so that it becomes a journey all of its own, doesn't it? With ups and downs. I think so that amazing kind of second guitar. I think that you've got the backing vocals sing alongside the guitar as well. It's like production, clearly thought about it in a different way, in that much more organic earlier sound that they had, where everybody had their bit and plays in their bit or sings in their bit, whereas it's more, and you, as you've pointed out, that kind of thing at 420 where the drums kind of speed up. Kind of hello.
Sorry.
That's all right. It's fine.
Surprising.
And you've got the then solo over the chords, and then that kind of drop down the last minute of the song or so, where you've got, like, was it a mandolin almost? Is it a mandolin playing a guitar? I thought it sounded a bit mandolinish to me, but maybe it's a 12-string. But really nice kind of drop out down to that acoustic thing at the end to the fade out. Definitely 10 out of 10, and never a skip. Andrew.
Yeah, it's the title track, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? And what's really interesting in contrast to this, with Ronnie's vocals on the opening track, there's no reverb on his vocals. It's almost as if it's planned, Ronnie's voice has broken in, almost that you're getting that classic rock voice come through on this track. God bless Ronnie for that. And again, the lyrics, we're going to keep talking about that. Go and check out the lyrics. We won't read them here. Brad's given you some good time points to go and check out if you're interested. I've made one time point here at the 4-minute 30 mark. Again, that tempo key change. It's just remarkable. Clever how that band does that in this format of the band. And again, that acoustic outro, of contrasts. Again, it's not surprising because Ronnie was familiar with this on previous bands. Good to see that they're incorporating it, and it kind of fits into that persona, I think, of what Black Sabbath wanted to do with this album, and it's working. It's got me. I'm ready to flick over to the second album, and I'm hooked, lined, and sinkered, Brad. I'm just about a Brad score, but it's a 10 out of 10, and what a killer album track side. Wow.
Yes.
Are we showing pics now, Brad?
100%. I think it's the halfway mark. We should show the pics without a doubt, just to set a bit of a mood so people,
thank you for my co-hosts for, as usual, for the wonderful insights and appreciations of the songs, and also everybody else's comments here. And we've got a few little rat bags in here. We've got Quentin James in here too, saying hello. He's concerned about the Rock Professor twerking. Well, let me just tell you something, Rock Professor. When you've got the Rock Professor doing things like this.
I blame Holly. She told me to do it.
When you got the Rock Professor actually revealing, to everybody internationally, to one of the biggest stream shows that we've done on the channel this year, that he's actually an alien.
She made me do it.
So this week's photos, Clickbait's brought to you on behalf of Holly Lewis and the alien, also known as the Rock Professor. There he is there, communicating.
Yeah, hashtag iBuds. Yes, absolutely, Holly.
Yeah, that was hilarious. Okay, back. I'm gonna throw out some pics.
Could I just say, Andrew, that Holly did ask my permission before she released them to the world for that picture, which is very kind.
Holly, you don't need to ask when it's on here. When it's on here live, you take it.
It's out there,
and you do with it what you want.
Well, I'm still very appreciative of the fact that she asked me first, which is very cool of her. So thank you, Holly.
Okay, so these are pics around 80. I don't know whether I couldn't tell Brad and Simon whether this was actually filmed in a concert or staged. I suspect it's staged, but that doesn't matter.
No. So that's obviously Geezer Butler over there on the left, Ronnie James Dio in the middle, and Mr. Tony Iommi there on the right. And Dio's covering the drummer. So we're assuming it's Bill Ward. So you've got Geezer Butler, Tony Iommi, Dio, and Bill Ward there on the right. That's left to right.
That. Not one of them over 5'6".
Yeah, you can see how tall Ronnie James Dio is there, the second from the right. So he's a very small guy and with a mighty big voice.
Yeah.
And they
okay. So just give me a second, mate. I want to get these photos in the sequence. So I'm gonna fire through. So this is the cover of the album that we're all familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the pic that the cover is based on, a staged photograph at the turn of the in the 1920s, Simon, apparently.
Yeah, 20s. Yeah. It's very much the vogue in the 20s of kind of fairies and that. And there's some famous faked photographs of I think they're sisters they took of fairies at the bottom of the garden. That they kind of mocked them up, but they're very well known in the 20s, and so there's definitely a vogue for it then.
Again, and there's you can see the connection. That's the back of the album.
Yeah.
And there's another group shot. As Brad would say, a hairy lot.
Yep. The hair.
This guy here, there's some love child stuff going on here with Tony Iommi, isn't there? Hey, Brad Sabbath.
Nice.
Yes. He's Ronnie. There's Ronnie. It's a great picture of Ronnie. He looks happy. He's smiling. You know.
And I think people, if you guys aren't aware of it, Ronnie was an American as opposed to the rest of the band being English guys. So, yeah, keep that in mind.
Yes. It's a great picture. That's with Vinny Appice there in the. So you got Tony Iommi, Vinny Appice, Ronnie James Dio, and Geezer Butler. So that's the drummer that replaced Bill Ward.
And this is the end of that tour. So
yeah.
So again, yeah.
Another great picture.
Ronnie again.
There he is, commanding attention from his fellow witches in the front row.
That's a famous cover from a bootleg. You can see the crucifixes there on either side of the drum stand.
Yeah.
The
man, Tony Iommi.
He's responsible for lots of children all over the world.
And some mighty riffs.
And that's a group shot. So we were talking about this group shot, Rock Professor. Oh, he's not there. So Brad, we were talking again. There's something really, really unique about what these guys are doing. And these guys weren't in the 70s. These guys were in the 80s. But we noticed one thing, how tight they were together as a group, Brad.
Exactly. They're all standing around the drum riser, and I think that that was very, very important for these guys. They stuck close together just to be tight. They wanted to make sure that they were, because it's such a big stage, and they could have stood anywhere they liked, but they decided to be as close as possible for the majority of the show. I think
I like the fact that Bill Ward has to duck down to look under the cymbals to see the rhythm of the band.
Right. I think for guitarists there, it looks like Marshall cabinets and Marshalls there behind Naomi.
Yeah, and it's not long after that he went to Laney's, but I think you're right. Yeah. And there's one other little point before we continue. So if you guys notice, Ronnie is doing this. And Ronnie, go and search. We won't talk about it a lot here, but go and search on YouTube Ronnie James Dio and the Devil's Sign, and he's going to tell you that this came from Italia. They used to use this in the Italian village that his people came from, and it was like that. He invented it. Ronnie James Dio did.
Yes.
There is that, isn't there? There is that invention thing of.
Yeah. Who are we to say that Ronnie James Dio didn't invent that? If Ronnie James Dio is on video saying he invented this, Brad, he did.
Yeah. Well, we have to give it to him. We've got a responsibility to give it to Ronnie James Dio.
I might find it. I might find that clip while we're talking, and we might play that clip before we find the before we play the heaven and hell thing, if that's okay.
100%. So those pictures are fantastic. Great pictures there, Andrew, and sets a mood so people,
You got half of them too, bro. Come on.
This is going back to the other. This is the picture that these two women sort of set up with the fairies from 1917, not 1920, but very much, which Sir Arthur Conan Doyle got behind as well. Thought they were real, those kind of things, which is very much in keeping with what you showed earlier, Andrew, that original photograph. Yeah, interesting.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to play this. I'm going to play this now. Hold on.
Oh, right.
Hold on.
Hold on to your hats, kids.
Hold on. because we're all about sharing knowledge here. Share screen. Share audio. Can you guys?
Breath. For something to happen. Drum roll, please. Terrible. That's it.
I'm getting tired, Andrew.
One of the things Ronnie is known for is inventing the devil horns, the most enduring symbol of heavy metal culture.
I'm of Italian extraction, and my grandmother, my grandfather, on both sides of both my mother's and father's side, came to America from Italy, and they had superstitions. And I would always see my grandmother when I was a little kid, you know, with her holding my hand and walking down the street. She would see someone and go, "What's that?" And eventually learned that it was called the Maloik. And the Maloik was, someone was giving us the evil eye, so she's giving it protection against the evil eye. Or you can give someone the evil eye too. So invent it, no, but perfect it and make it important, yes, because I did it so much, especially within the confines of that great band, Sabbath, which had this incredible name already, and you put that together with what people think it is. But for me, because I'm lucky enough to have kind of just have done it so much, it's been more equated with me than anyone else. Although Gene Simmons will tell you that he invented it, but then again, Gene invented breathing and shoes and everything, you know.
What makes metal unique? What makes the fans, the culture of metal unique, do you think?
That's enough. But
brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Love it.
I just like that. But you know,
nicely
tongue in breathing.
Yes, Gene Simmons invented everything. Yes. Lovely. That's very cool.
Yes.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, yes. And, you know, before we get into the next track, anyone who's interested in what we're, you know, this album we're going through, there's lots of stuff on Dio on YouTube alone. You can go through and discover the brilliance of Ronnie James Dio. His solo career was fantastic, just as much as you know, Sabbath with Dio. I love Dio's solo career. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think there's a track called There's a channel on YouTube called The Charismatic Voice, where the woman's a singing teacher. She did a lot of singing, teaching and stuff, and she goes into his vocal style in a lot of depth and stuff, which is really cool. So that's well worth watching if you're interested in that sort of thing.
What was that song he did? Butterfly's Ball, that Roger Glover thing.
Butterfly, but I don't think Ronnie James Jr. is not on Butterfly Ball, is it? He's John Lord.
No, I think Dio sings Love Is All. I think that's Dio.
Let's have a look.
Yeah. I always loved that track. And I love the film clip for the frog and stuff. I remember that from my childhood. That's unbelievable. Anyway, so we'll get back to work, gentlemen. We've got 4 more songs to do. So the opening track of side 2 is called Wishing Well. Definitely a very different type of song for Black Sabbath, without a doubt. The start of the song sounds like a completely different band to me. Again, Ronnie's voice and lyrics are outstanding. Tony's guitar playing throughout the song is fantastic. Bill Ward is very busy in this song. I find his drumming is now, in comparison to more of his earlier stuff, like with War Pigs and all that stuff, where he's playing a lot. He's playing a lot on this particular song. And Geezer Butler is also very busy in comparison to some of the earlier tracks we've gone through. Geezer was moving around and doing some moving bass parts in a lot of the earlier tracks, like the first 4, but this one he's very busy in. It's a great side 2 opener, and I gave it 8 out of 10, gents. So Simon, hand it over to you.
I think, well, just to go back, You're right. Ronnie James Dio sang 3 tracks on the Butterfly Ball with Glover. Love Is All, Homeward, and Sitting in a Dream.
Yeah.
So well remembered. I don't remember that at all.
Yeah.
But, yes, from 75. Yes, I think I said this before. You see that I see Wishing Well. I clearly think of Free straight away because the soundtrack to my early life of going to the pub was on the jukebox. The first pub we used to go to had Wishing Well on it, so I can't quite disassociate myself from that. But it's a great opener. It does, it's got driving chords, drums and bass, really, driving it along, as you've said, Brad, and that huge guitar solo in the middle. I don't know if it's wet and dry. It almost felt like sort of wet and dry to me, with reverb on one side and then a drier sound on the other side of the stereo, but really big sound, and up front, and then following it with a more normal sounding guitar solo later on. And as you said, the bass chords as well. I'm a sucker for bass chords. It always gives it an extra dynamic push with the bass chords. Again, a great opener for me. Does what it's supposed to do. 8 out of 10. Never a skip. Andrew.
Yeah, holy moly, Ronnie James, and that depth that he has on his vocals again takes it to another level. I'm just looking here. Brian's saying something. No, it's Alan saying powerful lyrics. Brian was saying that he remembered Ronnie talking to him about the hand sign. If you guys haven't checked out some videos that we did with Brian pretty much a year ago, there's a couple of videos here on the channel, and Brian's hung out with all these guys when he was in America. Brad, look, the continuity from Heaven and Hell opening up this track, smart move. It's a smart move. I've given this a 8.5 out of 10. I love Wishing Well, but any other day I probably would have given this a 10 out of 10, Brad. I love the song, mainly because of the vocals. Not much, interesting as far as the rest of the band going on here. Just a solid, great side 2 opener for me. 8.5 out of 10, Brad. Never a skip.
Yeah, so we're on the same page with we're on the same track with that one.
Yep.
It's So the next track is Die Young. This one in particular has a moody keyboard intro, and the keyboards on this song are very predominant, including the piano in it. There's a beautiful melodic guitar playing section there from Tony at the start. The song kicks in and it's thumping along. Tony Iommi has this ability to come up with overdubs where he flows over the top with really tasty guitar playing licks over the top of parts of songs, even if it's not a guitar solo. And I love how he does that on this song. Dio is somewhat, in my opinion, next level with his vocals on this track. Again, his lyrics, he's painting a picture. Bill Ward is playing fantastic. I love that piano interlude with the Die Young lyrics. Just it sets a mood. It gives you goosebumps. It's fantastic. The song, at 2 minutes 30, like that great solo from Tony Iommi. The outro playing is also amazing. It's a journey, this song, and it's only 4 minutes 20 seconds long. So they take you on a journey in this song. For me, it's 10 out of 10. It's never a skip for me, Simon.
Yeah, it's interesting. First time we've got keyboards, to the fore on this. I don't think there are any keyboards on anything else so far. So that's quite interesting. An interesting new palette or new sound things to the palette that they're using. Again, you've got the solo guitar, twin guitars as well. Twin guitars, playing the riff. Which again, and using also that kind of drop down to a pretty simple motif and having that very spacey guitar as well. that they play, and then the big riff, dramatic over the tinkling keys. It's not a loop, but somebody playing sort of tinkling keys, little motif signature thing. Can't remember his name. What's he called? I wrote it down. Jeff Nichols. Sorry, Jeff, I'm not giving you the credit you deserve here. Interesting dynamic change, I think, in anything. Typical fast, energetic solo at the end from Iommi. Really getting into it. And so 8.5 out of 10 from me. Never a skip.
Ooh.
Andrew.
One of the great things about 1979 is, they sacked Ozzy Osbourne, and that was a good thing. Ozzy got sacked, and that put Ozzy into rehab, and it gave him an opportunity to come back and have this epic solo career. But it also gave, clearly, Black Sabbath an opportunity to hone their skills and their act with Ronnie James Dio to take it to another level. And this is a song, in my opinion, that gives you that commitment from them, and the courage for having to getting Ronnie in, because for 50 seconds you've got this, as the rock professor said, you've got an interesting dynamic happening, and then after 50 seconds it's a peel your face off intro, and it's like, wow, short song, I love it. Tony's guitar is really, really interesting here, because he's playing underneath the percussion on this track. They kind of buried his guitar, and I like that. So it's giving you that continuity of contrast. I've given this track a 10 out of 10. It's a clever song. It's a short song. It's got a lot going for it, and I recommend you guys go and check it out and see if you think that my 10 is a good 10 or these measly little 8.5 scores,
Simon.
Look at this. Alan knows good music. Look at that. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, and I'm still right because I'm the rock professor. I can only score it how it strikes me, guys. I can only score 8.5 is a good score. Blimey, it's not a 6 or a 4, is it?
Well, you very, very likely you probably missed out on a timeout there, Simon, because we were
banned.
No, come back. It's all right. I'm joking.
Not an outright ban, anyway. Just a yellow card.
That's just a warning, all right. All right. So the next track is "Walk Away," and I always think of Joe Walsh when I hear that song title. For some reason, there's just something about it. But for "Walk Away," it's a very bluesy feel to this one, and very different for Black Sabbath. Some very busy but cool drumming there from Bill Ward. The bass, Geezer Butler's playing fantastic on this one. Dio again vocally. I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot. He's shining on this one, lyrically fantastic. Some great playing from Tony Iommi, and again I'll repeat his overdub guitar parts. The way he comes up with the overdub guitar ideas and then dubs them that way. He's the master at that. He's fantastic, like Jimmy Page was. Jimmy Page was, I guess, an sonic architect, and I see Tony Iommi the same way in a different way, but similarities there. He would always overdub the right guitar part, not overdoing anything, just putting the perfect part down for the song. Look, I'll be honest with you. The last 2 weeks, I think I didn't appreciate this song as much as I do now. The last 2 weeks have made me really appreciate this whole album and take it to a different sort of mindset for me on this song. So I gave this song a 7.5 out of 10, and never a skip for me.
Yeah, interesting. I've got yeah. I don't want to jump in, but I want to hear what the rock professor has to say. But Simon.
Sorry, what was that score again, Brad?
7.5.
Yeah.
7.5 out of 10. Well, I see. John is chiding me in the chat, just saying somebody says they're right about music, they lose all credibility. Quite rightly. I'm only being ironic, John. Of course, I don't know any better than anybody else. Brad's giving himself a timeout. Quite right. Well, interesting, isn't it, that we always say that the second last track on an album is possibly the weaker track, where you put the weakest track. I don't know if that's it. Sounds like that from Brad's point of view, is that his score reflects that position. Again, yes, there's not a huge amount to say about this song. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward 4/4 beat. Brad, as you said, quite a bluesy feel to it, contrasting. Again, it's a contrast with the previous track, and I think those things are, when you put together an album, you put together a side, of that. You want to have that flow, don't you? You want to have new things introduced for each song, and I think it's it's good that on track 7 there's still something new to be introduced to it, really. As I said, it's a pretty straightforward pretty straightforward riff, pretty straightforward. I agree with you about his the way that he's constructed his guitars on this. 2 guitars on here again, and the vocals as well, with you can see that they've thought a lot about the production. I don't know how much Martin Birch had to do with that, and have sort of built things a lot more than they did in the past. But as you said, Brad, earlier, they've got very, with Ozzy, they had very compartmentalized. He did the singing for guitar, everyone did, and that's how these things worked. It's a bit more sort of primitive. I'm going to use the word, but it's not really primitive. It's a bit plainer. But again, this is, I think that second guitar playing the solo back in the mix, that kind of back in the mix thing that you talked about, it's interesting. I gave this an 8 out of 10. Nevaaskip. Moving right along. Andrew.
Yeah, I've got so unlike Black Sabbath intro. It's not a something that you would identify immediately as a Black Sabbath song. Ronnie's got a different timbre to his vocals as well. And at that 240 mark, you've got a different guitar tone again, which is and a different style, completely different from everything else that we've had. And it's a bit jerky because of that. Now I wasn't sure what you guys would score this, obviously. I've given this 8 out of 10, Brad, so you've given it 7.5. I can see why. Even a 7. It's a different song. It's an interesting song. Yet I have a look at our very, very dear friend in the chat, Brian, who says that Walking Away is a great beat. He loves it, and he's got 10 out of 10. So yeah, interesting scores, but it just kind of it's kind of like that sour lolly in the sweet pack of lollies that you've bought at the corner shop, Simon. It's the sour lolly you didn't want, maybe.
To me, if you put it against like Heaven and Hell or the next song, it doesn't rate comparison, but still a good song. So 7.5 to me is a good score for it.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I as a young fella, I used to skip the song to get to the next song.
Too. So, me too. Yeah. I'll be honest.
Yeah. But I've found a passion for it. So guys, we've come to the last track of the album, and we always know that bands try to finish on a big note on a record, and I think they well and truly did on this one. Lonely is the word. Very tough intro on the guitar. with some somewhat laid back swinging drums I put here, and that stabbing bass, from Geezer Butler. It's just got that stabbing bass thing going on there. He does so well. Ronnie builds his vocals up as this song goes on, and again he gives us some very colourful lyrics. This is this is a perfect example of what Tony Iommi was saying about Ronnie James Dio's ability to write wonderful vocal melodies. Like, he writes a wonderful melody in this song across the music. At the 2-minute mark, there's a beautiful breakdown section with some really jazzy octave sort of guitar work going on. Then Tony breaks into another blistering solo around that 2:40 mark. Interestingly, again, Tony didn't put down a rhythm guitar section underneath the solo. So obviously they were quite happy with the bass and drum tracks alone, because on the majority of the album, there's a rhythm guitar underneath his solos. So I found that that very interesting, whether they ran out of time or whether they just decided they were happy with the bass and drum tracks alone. So the song has ebbs and flows. It's got light and shade dynamics. Makes this one of my favorite songs on the album, I think. The outro section with Tony just playing along to a keyboard thing that's going on or something like that reminded me of Stairway to Heaven. I don't know if you guys have picked that up in the outro section of the song. There's a section that's very reminiscent of Stairway to Heaven. It's coincidence. I don't think they've tried to do it. It's just very coincidental that it's got that Stairway to Heaven thing. And now that I brought it to your attention, I reckon you'll hear it.
Interesting.
I can listen to Tony Iommi improvise for hours without being bored. But as far as I'm concerned, it's a 10 out of 10. It's never a skip for me, and a wonderful way to end the record, and a killer record, to put it that way.
Yes. Yeah. It's a very, it's the classic kind of album ender, isn't it? Slower tempo, and that kind of heavy single chord plays under the singing kind of thing. And as you've said, Brad, that use of dynamics and changes within the song length to keep the interest up and things is I like the two guitars playing lead lines as well. Different things that clearly they've thought about that, and and Tony's put that together. I think for the first time I wrote down kind of funky drums and bass kind of thing. There's not been much funky stuff going on until in this last track. I felt anyway. So that was quite interesting, and that slow kind of bluesy feel for the first solo as well as again a kind of bit of a departure really from what's gone before, which is never a bad thing, making the contrast with the previous tracks, and just the bass and drums under the solo, just keeping it really quite simple. Again, just quite airy. There's a lot of space in there that Iommi can fill. It's not just fill everything up. And vocals, and you again that kind of bluesy guitar solo at the end with lots of vibrato, as you say, Brad, over the keys at the end. I didn't pick up the Stairway to Heaven thing myself, particularly. I'll go back and listen to that. But I didn't pick that up. But it's really good outro. And with plenty of great playing from Iommi. So 10 out of 10 for me. Never a skip. Andrew.
Steve Snyder, how are you, brother? Good to see you. Been a long time. Hope you've been good, keeping out of trouble. Lonely as the night. I'm glad Brad mentioned that, because that was a debate that we had 80, 90, 2000, 2010, 2020, 42 years ago. Holy cow, Brad. 42 years ago. We were having this conversation about the connection between Led Zeppelin because we were Led Zeppelin nuts there. So I agree with you. I think there was something going on there. And again, I'm going to echo what the rock professor said. There's that ding, 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 ding. There's another beat thing going on there, giving it that funk thing going on underneath. You got another different guitar tone, Brad, from Tony on this song too. So, he's got, this is a great album for contrasts in Tony's guitar tones. Go and check it out, guys. On previous albums he's done, he's known for continuing that same kind of tone right through albums. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but the great thing about this album is that he has, on a lot of these songs, deliberately changed his tone. And that bass speed too is up on this. I love that. It's an epic song. Rock Professor, you said it, that end, Tony's solo at the end is just phenomenal, isn't it? It's one of those songs that, and Brad sort of kind of mentioned it when he was talking about a song. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was. But you know how sometimes you can listen to a song, and this is only a shortish song. It's only 5:47, so it's a shortish song, not a long song. But it's a song that when I listen to, Brad, I feel like it's like an 8-minute song. But it's not. I had to go and check a couple of times. Oh it's only great thing about Spotify, gives you all the information. Clever song, great song. This is my Brad score song, and I think this just encapsulates everything that's on this album. It's these musicians echoing off each other. This great musical turn that they've got, and they realise that they've got this great American guy there. It's a shame that they couldn't continue it. A couple of guys at the beginning of the chat said that they missed Ozzy, the drummer in particular. But Brad and Simon, Ozzy had to go. He had to go. He couldn't continue doing what he was doing with Black Sabbath. Otherwise, he would have died. So, he had to go, and look what he did.
The wonderful thing about it too is we got some amazing albums from Ozzy, especially the Randy Rhoads era was this era. So
wouldn't have got it, bro.
Hey.
We wouldn't have got it, bro, if he'd stayed with Black Sabbath. He would have died, bro.
I know. So the trade-off is, we got an amazing another Sabbath album with Ronnie and a equally, in my opinion, amazing debut album from Ozzy as a solo artist. It's amazing.
And there's John at it again. Tone E Iommi.
Yeah. One thing that I love about Iommi's playing, and a lot of it comes down to, we've done episodes in the past, guys, where we've spoken quite a lot about Tony Iommi's finger situation, where he's lost the fingertips on two fingers, and he wears like thimbles or something on his fingertips. But the amazing thing about it is his vibrato is very aggressive and tight, and not very wide, very close together. So it gives him a very unique playing style that not many people can do the way he does. And that's just a natural thing for him because he can't feel the strings under his fingers while he's playing. So if you're trying to emulate his solos, I don't know if you guys have really tried this, but you've got to add that really small, not wide vibrato, really tight vibrato and fast. I know he does vibratos a bit wider and slower at times, but the majority of his playing, it's a natural thing. And I'm getting geeky about guitar playing here, guys, so sorry about that. But
good.
Yeah, his vibrato is very tight and fast. He's somewhat like Angus Young has that as well, but Iommi has his own thing and it all boils down to what happened to his fingertips. So I just thought that was relevant to talk about, guys. So
no problem.
But thanks for indulging me with this album, and
Brad,
thanks for
did I Brad score this? I'm sorry for interrupting, bro. Did I Brad score it?
Yeah, you did, yeah.
No.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. I didn't catch you off. You Brad scored it, so you did.
Yeah, okay. Sorry for interrupting. I just wanted to make sure that that was on record.
Yeah, Brad scored it. No, he did.
Brad Sabbath
yeah. I know on this channel we've got a lot of people that like to hear that stuff, so I thought that'd be something worth mentioning.
Yeah. That's really
enjoyed it.
Thanks for loaning me your album of choice, Andrew. I didn't really loan it; I stole it.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, isn't it, that in a context of what else was going on then, the new wave of British heavy metal was just starting off at the same time as this record, and that kind of greater production values and things like Martin Birch was, we're just getting into Iron Maiden and all those things where, and you can see this has kind of parallels with that in the production and what they were doing. Yeah, I don't know how much they influenced it, but I can see. I figure this is very much a kind of 80s album and not a 70s one in terms of its production.
Production-wise, it's very different. Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely, but kind of pointing the way of the 80s rather than looking back to the 70s.
Yeah,
which is great. Yeah, it's been really good fun. I always enjoy records I haven't, I don't really know, and enjoy going investigating them anew. So yeah, it's been great fun.
Awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a couple of shows planned coming up. The Rock Professor and I might be doing a show on Saturday with a young guy that's got a new channel. We're going to work it out. Whether or not we're going to do that. And the Rock Professor, I think you've got an album. It's your album pick for next Sunday too, isn't it?
I haven't picked one yet though, but I'll let you know what it is. Keep an eye on the social medias.
Yeah. We'll file that through on our social medias. But we've got some shows coming up next month. We've got a show with Richard Orlando. Brad, the guy with the 3 volumes on the Peter Green stuff. So we're going to go out and push that on social media. So we'll look forward to the Rock Professor's pick for next week. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us, hanging out with us. We've been here with you for bang on 2 hours. We love it. 2 hours, Brad.
2 hours, perfect.
2 hours, bro.
Right on the money.
Yes, indeed. It's
well
planned. I'll say goodbye to everyone in the chat. So Gret Zeppelin, Holly Lewis, Brian Spalding. Brian, thanks, mate. Good to see you again, and great comments as ever. John ZD351, keep me on the straight and narrow. Thanks, John. Have a good week. We've had Ellen, of course. Ellen, thank you, Ellen, for being there every week. Fantastic. Greg Roberts Tune. Thanks, Greg, for Steve-O12 Snyder. Good to see you, Steve-O. Great stuff. Thanks for dropping by. Ryan, who else we got? Holly. Johnny Heartbreaker as well. Thanks, Johnny, for dropping by and your continued support as well. It's really cool. Just come around. Oh, Wojciech Rataj. I missed Wojciech.
Oh.
Vista, missed you. I think it's Wojciech. I think that's how you pronounce it. So, Wojciech, thanks for joining and good to see you. Apologies, I missed you in the melee.
He's one of my local mates. G'day, Wojciech. Good to see you, brother. If you're watching, sorry we missed you.
Damn.
Yeah, I'm sorry, bro.
Yeah, I'm sorry we missed you as well. That's my bad for missing a name. Quentin as well. Thanks, Quentin, for dropping by. Keep me on the straight and narrow. Leo Safko. Leo, thanks to you as well. I think that's Tim Thomas as well at the top. Thank you, Tim, for dropping by. Gret Zeppelin. Hopefully that's everybody. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody. But so thanks everyone for dropping by. Good to see you.
Awesome. And if you guys are watching, if you managed to get to 2 hours, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do. We appreciate that. We subscribe back to everybody that subscribes to us. And please go and check our friends. We've added some extra channels. I've got some more channels to add to our channels page. Please go and subscribe to all our friends. We're out of here. Are we out of here?
Yeah. We're out of here. Yes.
You're going to play that
next
video?
week, team.
Oh, yeah.
Video.
Okay, so, yeah. So just give me a second, guys. So the guitar player is a guy called Michael, who I used to communicate with at least a decade ago, and he wanted to be a singer. And this is a rehearsal that they had with this guy. Check this guy out. Trying to get this band together, but they just rehearsed a couple of songs, and like a lot of things, personalities got in the way, and they didn't do anything with this band. But check it out, please, Mr. YouTube. Don't hate us. We're just here. We're educationalists. Don't hate us.
Let's wave.
Yeah. Don't hate us. But bots don't listen, do they? That's the trouble with bots. They don't listen.
All right. I'm gonna play this and check it out.
Right. Are you sharing the sound as well, Andrew?
Love can be seen as the answer. 1, 2, 3.
Show you that, guys. So did you notice the lead singer walked over to the amp, to Michael's amp, before he started the solo and fiddled with his EQ setting? And he did it he did it at the end as well, on the second solo. And I remember having this conversation with Michael about it, and he said, yeah. He said, that's why I wanted the guy, because the guy knew Dio, and he was confident. Didn't even know the guy. He was confident enough to walk over and I won't tell you what he said because it's a family show, but and F around with my amp, to get something that he wanted to hear as a vocalist, as a lead singer.
Yeah. What's the name of the band, Andrew? What are they called?
I've put Michael's link in the channel. There he is there.
Oh, cool.
There it is there.
Cool.
So no, they didn't do anything with the band. That was just there's another Die Young. There's a Die Young song on the channel as well that they do. No, they just rehearsed, but never got off the ground.
Okay.
But I just remember just having this conversation with Michael 10 years ago about this album. So I thought I'd share it. Because that's what we do.
Cool.
We're collaborators here.
It's what we do.
Collaborate.
Yeah.
We're not greedy. We're just collaborators.
Let's hope we
Are we out of here?
Let's hope we don't get banned. Yes. Yeah. Indeed, we should end on that note. Take care, all in the chat. Good to see you, and we'll see you next week. Fantastic.
Hold on. Where are we?
The controller is pressing the buttons whilst Brad and I entertain. That just looks weird, doesn't it? What was I thinking?
Oh, goodness.
Oh dear.